Whenever you begin a task, always begin with insight. Because in the beginning was insight, and all things through insight came into existence. And without insight, not a thing came into existence, which has ever come into existence. Bright insights for life, because you know more than you think.
All right, Doc. So we left off on the last episode. We were talking about Riddy and her journey through the underworld, or the hell on earth.
Yes.
But we never got to this prophetic lady that shows up in Riddy's life almost instantly in the show.
Cat food?
Yeah, she was eating cat food. Who was this lady and why is she eating cat food? Or who is she symbolizing?
Well, in the Greek mythology, there were, well, first off, you notice whenever she shows up in the movie, her presence is always accompanied by very eerie music.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because she represents the eeriness.
The eeriness.
Yeah, the eeriness in the Greek mythology were the bastard daughters or illegitimate daughters of Zeus. Just like in the movie KAOS.
The show.
Yeah, in the show, the Netflix show KAOS, Hera, the wife of Zeus, is casting spells on all of the mothers of all of his illegitimate children. Mm-hmm. She made them bees. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, Zeus's illegitimate daughters were known as the eeriness, and it's the eeriness is what we call irony. But in the Greek language, the first letter is iota rather than I. So it's pronounced irony. And the eeriness were these bastard daughters of Zeus, the illegitimate daughters of Zeus. Now the eerie thing about them is that if some of them look just like him, mm-hmm. they look just like their daddy, and if you happen to see them, it might cause you to double take, like, was that a dude? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, to that regard, that's part of the eeriness. And then the other illegitimate daughters that didn't look like him acted like him, or they summoned his willpower.
So they had big egos too.
Yeah, they were just like their dad. And so the eeriness is what you call today the feminist. And so she, if you notice, she came to Riddy. And she told Riddy to leave her man. And then she also led Riddy to her death. So that's the function of the eeriness. And the eeriness, just like all the other women of ancient Greek society, were embroiled and embattled amongst themselves just like the men. And the behavior of these women, you're familiar with the word misogyny? You ever heard that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so misogyny is a term that has been misconstrued for a very long time, and society's paying the price for it. Because typically, if you've ever heard someone define misogyny, they say that misogyny is hate for women. But actually, misogyny is hateful women, because the word misogyny is a compound Greek word, right? Okay. It's two words, miso and gune, all right? I'll show you real quick. I'll demonstrate it real fast so you can appreciate it. Take your class real fast.
Miso and gine.
Miso and gune.
Miso and gune.
Yeah, it's a compound word. It looks like this. Miso, right? I'm gonna make it a little smaller. That way we can see it together. Miso, gune. Okay, so miso and gune, two separate words, right? Okay. Now, the first word we'll talk about is gune. Gune looks like this in English. Okay, so gune is the Greek word for female, not woman, but female. And in the scientific field of study that focuses on the female reproductive system and female systems altogether is gynecology. So it's a study of female reproductive systems and organs, and it is derived from the word gune.
Okay.
Okay, so miso is the word hateful. Hateful, right?
In the Greek language.
Yes, not hate. Hateful.
Mm-hmm.
Hate is something else or someone else. Hate
So did you say there were epsilons in this word as well? How does this word get mistranslated so in the English language?
So, miso is hateful behavior, okay? Not hate. Hate is the Greek goddess of witchcraft. And this word is actually hate. This is pronounced hate, right? But if you take this E and this K out, you have hate. Hate is the Greek goddess of witchcraft, okay? But miso is hateful behavior. So misogune, right, or misogyny is females behaving hatefully, okay? And that is what we witnessed in the movie with the lady eating the cat food. And that is typically the behavior of all of the females in the ancient Greek society. Well, Hera in the movie is behaving hatefully towards all the women that her husband is having children with. She's casting spells on them, making them bees or whatever else. She cut the tongues out of the Tacitus, which is actually the word tactics. Those ladies who, like Riddy's mother, who dedicated herself to serve Hera, she became what is known as the Tacitus in the in the show, right?
Yeah.
So the correct pronunciation in English would be tactics. All those women who had their tongues cut out to serve Hera, she used them as tactics. Yeah, so that's how it. That's the personification of it in this book.
So where are we misstepping in just society period with words like this? Where is the? Is it just always the epsilons?
Well, here's the thing, bro. Here's the thing. They have a movie. It's called Dumb and Dumber. Okay, and the problem for our society is the failure to understand that smart and dumb is the same thing.
How you mean?
There are just levels to it. Smart is a higher form of dumb. Okay? And in order to understand and appreciate this, you have to understand that wisdom is the correct use of knowledge.
Okay.
And that has nothing to do with smart or dumb. And so see, smart and dumb are the same thing. Let me give you an example. Demonstrate something else for you real fast. Demonstrate for you how smart and dumb is the same thing. All right. You're familiar with this right here, right? Seen that before?
Yeah, it's pie.
That's pie? What kind of pie is it? Apple pie? The lemon meringue? Let me see.
That's mathematical pie.
It don't smell like a pie. I'm gonna give you a taste. So you say that's a pie, right? Okay, pie. Now, this is the 16th letter in the Greek alphabet.
Okay.
Okay? And its phonetic spelling is like this. Okay?
P.
Its counterpart in the English alphabet happens to also be the 16th letter, and it looks like this.
See.
And its phonetic spelling is. Now, whether you tell this to a smart person or a dumb person, you get the same response. We call it a pie. See, smart and dumb is the same thing. That's P. P equals 3.14. Some of the smartest people in the world say it's a pie. But that sort of misunderstanding is a good example of how we lose understanding of certain words that translate into English from the Greek language and other languages, because we often mispronounce the letters.
P.
P.
Not pie.
Not a pie. It doesn't look like a pie, it doesn't smell like a pie, it doesn't taste like a pie. And that's because it's a P.
So, back to the one of Zeus's daughters. Then is what you saying? Her this lady was the Catwoman. She was prophetic.
Mm-hmm.
She kept telling Riddy that today's the day. She was telling her she was gonna leave everybody, and she knew she was gonna die that day.
Yeah.
What now?
Because that's her purpose. She was just fulfilling her purpose. She prophesied doom.
Okay, so I kind of got the feeling that maybe she was somehow linked to like the same purpose of maybe what the fates are or something, or maybe.
Well, the fates are in a different category. The fates are, as they appear in the show,
Mm-hmm.
they are what you would call man bitches, and that's because, recently they had publicized the question, "What is a woman?"
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if anybody ever answered it sufficiently, because what a woman is has very little to do with being a female, as much as man and woman is gender. Okay?
Okay.
And in the species, amongst the primates, we're all denominated as male or female. And when you check all the vital statistics, driver's licenses, birth certificates, it always says M or F. It doesn't say M or W, because little children can't be M or W. They're not men or women. They're just male and female. Okay? And gender is genre. Like you have different genres of literature, different genres of music.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Gender is where the differences are displayed of males and females. In other words, it speaks to behavior. Okay?
Okay.
And it is also indicative of competition. Okay? Gender. And this is how a man can be a woman. Right? So in competition, we can use basketball and football as very good examples. Some of the best women we know some of the best women we know are men. All right? Because when you think of it in terms of sports, like say basketball, for example, the coach teaches you that when a man takes the ball and tries to go down the sideline, you run over there and put your foot on that sideline, and that cuts him off. He can't, you impede his progress.
Mm-hmm.
That's whoa, man. Okay? In football, the defensive end is a very good example of whoa, man, because their job is, as they say, to set the edge. They got to get up the field and stop the play from getting outside. Whoa, man. Okay? So this is what woman is. Woman is a term that speaks directly to competition. And it applies to all the fields of competition, which include the battlefield, the sports field, and the markets.
So you saying it shouldn't be used in the same correlation as it is with female?
Yeah, it's not the same thing. It's all man and woman is gender, and it's all about competition. You see what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, when you talk about man and woman and gender and competition, you're speaking in terms of the human race. Okay, that's what a race is, a competition. This is not race. This is ethnicity. So that's why it's a misnomer to say interracial. That's bi-ethnic. Okay, so we're confused deeply and about this altogether because people very commonly refer to this as race, and this isn't race. This is ethnicity, and this pertains directly to us as a species. This is black male. You understand? Okay, but gender speaks directly to competition. Race, the human race. This is humankind.
Who then essentially are the fates then?
The fates, well, fate is a term of conclusion, you know, fatalities in life, you know, and their role, there are three of them. Let's see if I can remember their names. Clotho, Lethus, and Atropos. Those are the three fates. One of them, Clotho, she spins the thread, and Lachesis feeds it out. And Atropos clips the thread of life whenever they deem it as necessary, whether that is right after conception or at some other point that they consider to be the end of your life. And that's what they represent, is the conclusion to life. And that conclusion to life in the mythology was controlled by the fates, and so even the gods feared the fates. But it is, you know, obviously a figment of the imagination, as you see in the show. Zeus ends up destroying them. But yeah, they.
But then they say you can't destroy fate though at the end.
Well, yeah, that's what they say, but it just speaks basically to how you do you live your life in fear of dying, or do you live your life always striving to achieve and not worrying about dying? And I say that because, biblically speaking, the purpose of life and death is the same: to glorify the one from whom we came. And that's how we should lead our lives.
And they're different from the Furies. We had the Fae and the Furies.
Yeah, the Fates and the Furies are different. Now, the Fates are three of Night's children from the book Jesus and All Night's Children. So you'll learn more about them when you read Jesus and All Night's Children and their function. But the Furies are different from the Fates in that the Furies, they represent or personify the voices in the mind.
And you say these are also Night's children.
No, the Fates are.
The Fates are Night's children.
The Furies represent the voices in the mind. You notice how in the show they came to Ari, who was the the daughter of Minos, the king of Crete. Okay. In the movie, it says that they appear to the people that they are after. So Ari thought they were after her because they appeared to her.
Yeah, people who had done some wrong or some injustice or something like that.
Okay, but what they represent is the voices in the mind. And in the Bible, this is the word Beelzebul.
Beelzebul, what's that mean?
Beelzebul is the prince of the voices in people's minds. Okay, I'll elaborate on that because this is an area where we should probably start to learn past where we are on the subject of demons. Essentially, the Furies are demons. Demons are the voices in people's minds. Okay, the Greeks lived in neighborhoods, and the Greek word for neighborhood is deem.
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 D-E-E-M.
Yeah, D-E-E-M. So the people lived in deems, and demons lived in the people. Okay? So everybody has a voice in the mind. Okay? Socrates spoke about something divine, daimonion, something divine that spoke to him and told him, alerted him of danger, but it didn't tell him what to do. It wasn't in control of him. Okay? So the purpose of the demon and this is totally misconstrued in society when you listen to people talk about demons and these pictures that they have of these gory figures, when actually the demon is the voice in the mind. And everybody has one, right? And the purpose of the demon is situation awareness. Your demon is supposed to aware you or alert you of danger. That's its purpose. But when you befriend the voice in your mind, and y'all start having conversations back and forth, okay, now the demon becomes dysfunctional. It doesn't do its job properly. It doesn't just warn you. As a matter of fact, it's off duty. It's not there to warn you of or provide situational awareness anymore. Now is your friend, the voice in your mind.
So then what's the difference between what that and what some might call intuition?
So,
because that's what I mean,
yeah.
what you're saying, that sounds like intuition a little bit.
Intuition, just like the demon, or the voice in the mind, is something told me. Something told me. Situational awareness. Man, I was gonna go, but something told me don't do it. What is it telling you? See, this is another area too where it's very troublesome amongst people who talk about this subject, because the voice in the mind is oftentimes mistaken to be the God. You say, God spoke to me. Well, the Bible is clear about the fact that the God does not speak audibly. It says that nobody has ever seen or heard the God at any time, at all. So if you say you heard the God, and the Bible says that the God doesn't speak audibly, then what you're hearing is the voice in your mind. And if it isn't alerting you of danger, that's because you are probably underestimating it. Because you see, some people befriend the voice in the mind. Some people become totally enamored with it. And when you do that, the voice in the mind starts to duplicate and multiply into voices in the mind. And this speaks to multiple personality disorder and things like this, but even more so, just the idea of being unaware that that's what the voice in the mind is, puts us at an unusual predicament, and we just need to learn more about that. And you can learn more about that in Jesus and All Nice Children too.
Jesus and All Nice Children touches on.
So the Furies are the voices in the mind, and as such, when they come to see people, they're not coming to create situation awareness, because at this point, they're coming to
kill you.
They're coming to lead you down
or force you to commit suicide.
Force you to do something, heinous, more than likely.
In one of your papers I read on this show, you mentioned how the background of or the setting of KAOS of this TV show is a lot like it's conceptually the background of the New Testament and the Bible.
Yes. And that's something also that we need to bring out so that people can understand and be more clear about this. And this could be a good reason for people to watch it. And that is the fact that what we're watching being depicted in the show KAOS is essentially the contextual background of the New Testament. Because most of us, we don't think of it in these terms, but Zeus and all of the mythological characters, all of the mythological experiences, all of this shapes up the contextual background, what's going on during the first century when the New Testament actually occurred, when the events in the New Testament actually occurred.
Things like?
Well, you have to think of it like this. So, one of the reasons why it's misconstrued is because we don't have history itself in its proper perspective. When we think of history, or we have a general conversation about history, we're thinking in terms of the history of the world. But history proper is essentially the last 2,000 years. This is the reason why we say we're in the 21st century. Okay, because the first century marks the start of history. Because Herodotus, the father of history, the Greek father of history, founded history leading up to the first century. Okay?
Okay.
And the word history I should probably show you this too real fast because this is an area of contention that that deserves to be addressed because history gets a bad rap, okay? And that's because most people just don't understand history. Istore.
This is history.
Is I-S-T-O-R-I-A. Okay. Now, if you see that in front of it, this is not an H in the Greek language. This is Eta. Okay?
Okay.
And the H you don't pronounce this letter, Eta, in the Greek alphabet the way you pronounce H. H has a hard sound. Eta has a soft sound. So it's usually silent. So this word isn't history. Okay? This word is istore. And istore is an inquiry into the events of the past. Not an inquiry into the past, but an inquiry into the events of the past. Okay? And this is contentious because people say that this is his story. And that's not even what the word is. It doesn't have two S's. It's not his story. It's his story. And his story is an exam into the past, the events of the past. And so we get that confused in that regard, right? But then when we think in terms chronologically, the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, right? Okay. And on that time scale, this is only the last 2,000 years. This is history, just the 2,000 years. When you go back from 2024 and you get to the first century, you cross over to the place where history doesn't exist. Okay, so before the first century, there was no history. What we have before the first century is the original historical record of the Earth. History proper is the history of Western civilization. And this is the reason why history has never been kind to black people. Because history had very little to do with black people until Plymouth Rock landed on us. You know what I'm talking about? But yeah, history proper is the last 2,000 years. Okay, and not holding that in its proper perspective, we get confused about a lot of things.
You said history didn't have nothing to do with us.
Black people, yeah.
Yeah, black people. What do you mean by that?
Well, so prehistoric, that's anything before history started. You understand?
Which is recorded.
Anything before 2,000 years ago, okay, is prehistoric, but not necessarily uncivilized. Prehistoric doesn't mean uncivilized, because before history proper started, 2,000 years ago, there were civilizations, Negro civilizations all over the world. You understand? So, and those Negro civilizations were a part of the original historical record of the Earth, which is geological in nature. Okay? Yeah, so the difference between history proper and...
So it's not our history.
It's not our history. It's the history, the inquiry into the events of the past in Western civilization. Yeah.
That's a good one, Doc.
Right on, right on. Sure, you're right.
So we did we talk about we talked about the Wunderwater and with Prometheus trying to keep it going.
Hold that thought for a second. Let me come back to the point you made about history, because I was trying to put into perspective real quick how the New Testament is a part of history.
Oh, the conceptual background.
Contextual background of the New Testament. The reason why KAOS, the show, is the contextual background of the New Testament era of the Bible is because the New Testament era of the Bible is a part of the last 2,000 years. History. The Old Testament is not a part of history proper. See what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, the Old Testament is black history. Everybody in the Old Testament is black. It is during history the history of Western civilization is where the white people show up in the story, in the New Testament. You understand?
Mhm.
So we don't think of it. See, you got to think like this. So before the 1960s, there were no African Americans anywhere.
Clear.
Name a couple. The slaves weren't African Americans. Martin Luther King and them weren't African Americans. You understand? The term African American is a hyphenated nomenclature that best applies to the contiguous relationship between the North and South American continents in their contiguous relationship to the African continent and the supercontinent, Pangaea, which is more often than not mispronounced Pangea, but it's Pangaea because Gay is the earth, Mother Earth.
So then, what would have been the proper word?
Well, in all the Negro, all I'm saying is that in all the Negro civilizations, they were already in existence before history started. You understand?
Mhm.
So the Negro civilizations are not a part of history proper. You understand? The last 2,000 years. They had been around 10,000, 12,000 years before that.
And there's nothing recorded of anything.
Well, what I'm saying is that is a part of the original historical record of the earth.
Mm.
When you study geologically, going back from the 1st century all the way back, you learn not just about the people, but also about the earth itself. And that's why I said the Old Testament is black history, because everybody in the Old Testament is black. It's about all the black kingdoms and not all, it's not about all of them, excuse me, not all of them, but many of them, all throughout the world. So in the Old Testament, you don't hear anything about Rome, you don't hear anything about Greece, because they had not emerged. So in the Greek history, Herodotus in the 5th century, the 400s, started recording history proper, introducing history proper. But before that,
You said when was that?
I think around 425 BC.
425.
Yeah, and so before that, the leading scholars were the poets, Hesiod, and before him, Homer, but remember, that isn't an H, that's Ada. So his name is actually Omer.
Omer.
But since we transliterate that into English as an H and pronounce it as an H, they say Homer. But that's Ada. And so it's silent. And his name is Omer. Okay? And so that's after the Bronze Age collapse around the 10th century in the 900s or so.
Mhm.
Okay? And this is where all of the oral traditions or the mythology is being passed down through until we get to Herodotus, who starts to record a history. And that's how the Greeks got their identity, through learning about their past.
So you mentioned how everybody in the Old Testament was black,
Mm-hmm.
and if in the New Testament is now the background of what we see in here in this TV show.
Yeah.
Who were the Trojans supposed to metaphorically or symbolically be?
Okay, so that's a good question. And that's another area that needs to be touched on too, because
And also if it's who were they supposed to be in the New Testament, in the Bible, or is that even spoke on in there?
well, let's talk about who they are, and then, because we kind of touched on it already, but then it'll clear up a little more for you, because they're in the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
because the Bible is the early parts of history.
Mm-hmm.
And the Trojans are probably akin to what is known back then as the Sea Peoples.
The Sea Peoples.
Yeah, so after the Bronze Age collapse, which occurred in the 12th century, around 1155 BC or so, therein, close to it, the Sea Peoples emerged, and they really have no identity, okay? So nobody has an answer for it. Just like people can't answer where the Trojans come from, you know, but they're akin to the Greeks. But they live along the borders, just like all of the sea peoples. There's one group, and now we're going out on the limb. I'm offering my professional opinion about it, right? There's one group of people that is not accounted for when we talk about history, the first century, and times in that chronological range, right? That group of people are the people who were ousted from most of those civilizations because they were what we call today interracial. You understand?
Okay.
All right. And interracial children, just like their parents, considered monsters. And this is why I make the connection of the interracial people to the sea peoples, because being interracial, they had to compete even harder in the human race to identify and to get ahead. And just like the Trojans, all of the sea peoples who lived on the borders of the Adriatic Sea, or Asiatic, whichever you call it, the Adriatic Sea, and up in the northern part of Greece, as well as around the borders of the Mediterranean on the eastern coast. All of these peoples are very not so well identified. And it's because most of the people then who lived that way were ousted by the bigots in either the white civilizations or the bigots in the black civilizations. Because bigotry, racism, discrimination, all of that existed in the black civilizations long before the Western civilizations had ever even emerged. And it's important to understand, in the black civilizations, if everybody in the civilization is black, then who is the enemy of the black people?
Black people.
Black people.
Last episode, you were talking about the Olympia and how this is where Greeks come together because they're it's usually war.
Yeah.
Truce. Well, yeah. Why is it so much? What's with all the conflict in Greek society?
Human race. They're in competition. Just like in the Negro civilizations. Human race. So you can't blame it on the Western culture, and you can't blame it on the culture from the Negro civilizations. It's all of them. The human race existed in all of the civilizations. We just have it confused, referring to this as race rather than ethnicity. It is deeply insulting, really, to tell you the truth, and altogether immature, to refer to our ethnicity as race. By now, we should have turned the corner on that. Now we're like the people who didn't have a coin in the movie, stuck. That isn't the river Styx, that's Upsilon, it's Stux, which is simply stuck.
And so then what was the river, if that's the river Stuck, what was the river her lover had to cross to get to her? Because he crossed a different river with Chiron.
Yeah, he was just...
When he had to go through the fates to get to...
Yeah, that's just the entrance to Hades itself. Yeah, and you know, because if you... See, he was allowed there, but if you don't have a coin, right, you're stuck. That's what the river is called. The river's stuck. Okay, you're stuck. And the guardian is the three-headed dog. So it kind of played off.
Sniffing around during in the lines.
But Kerberos, the three-headed dog.
Yeah, Kerberos, not
yeah.
Cerberus.
Yeah, that's key. Key, the X, what looks like an X in the Greek alphabet is key. Often mispronounced Chi, C-H-I is key. And it represents the phonetic sound of the letter C as in car, not face. Yeah, I mean, so that's Kerberos. And Kerberos is the three-headed dog that actually has a snake for a tail. And he's the guardian of the underworld. He has three heads because he represents altogether law enforcement on the local, state, and federal levels. And law enforcement is basically unconstitutional because in a republic, a democratic republic in particular, a republic is ruled by law, not ruled by people. that's a monarchy.
Mm.
And Zeus was king, so theirs was a monarchy and the law was being enforced. And that's what Kerberos personifies. And the only way, see, Kerberos, before hell emerged onto earth, Kerberos wasn't that sort of dog. He was known as Lapsus was his name before he converted into Kerberos. And Lapsus is like Lassie. You ever seen Lassie? You know Lassie?
Mm-hmm.
The dog on television? The collie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kerberos was like Lassie before he was converted to the Hellhound. That's what he is, the Hellhound. And the only way to turn back the Hellhound, the Hellhound, is with the Devil Dog. That's the only way to deal with Kerberos. You have to call in the Devil Dogs. You know what Devil Dog is, right?
No, what's a Devil Dog?
It's United States Marine Corps, man. So yeah, when he lapses back into his normal self, he's just a good pet. So that's his alter ego.
And he was sniffing for people, what, missing coins or for what, unfinished business? What is
No, they kind of played up on that in the show, like he's the dog in the airport sniffing for bombs and stuff. But actually, his job is just to stand guard, and he doesn't have anybody carrying him or anything. His job is to stand guard and to intimidate people who are stuck.
Mm. Like you said, okay, so because he represents the law enforcement, so they terrorizing these stuck, depressed folks.
Yeah,
Is that what that's supposed to be what the police do?
Yeah.
Stuck folk.
Yeah. History has repeated itself. It already happened.
How you mean?
Well, it's just that we see the same things happening now that happened before in history, over and over the past 2,000 years. And because in the work that we have coming down to earth, the life and wellness message of the Christ, a modern translation of the Greek New Testament, we are very careful to interpret and translate the words into terms that we're more familiar with. And people today do not realize how much people today speak like people 2,000 years ago, or talk like people 2,000 years ago.
Really?
Oh yeah, because the English alphabet derives largely from Greek.
But we got it all messed up though.
Yeah, so when you clarify, it makes better sense.
Is there the concept of reincarnation in Greek mythology? Because they certainly emphasize on it, on what's keeping the wonder water going of the idea of passing through the frame.
Yeah,
to be reborn and.
Yeah. Okay. So they found that once they got on the other side of the frame, thinking that they would have a new life.
Right.
It was just a hoax.
Right.
So until someone comes back from the dead and tell us that that's where they were and they back and all that, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same effect.
And Zeus
As
wasn't
far as
allowing that.
reincarnation. What's that?
I said, and Zeus wasn't allowing that.
No. It was like it said in the song, it was all a dream